next debate, and I see that the main participants are here. So if colleagues can leave quickly and quietly. Minister, we will continue. Well, I'm not sure that was very quick or very quiet, but never mind. If she's ready to go, it's a delight to call Angela Crawley to move the motion. I'll then call the Minister to respond. Just to remind you, there's not an opportunity on the 30-minute debate for the member in charge to wind up, and that is our convention. Angela Crawley.
Thank you. I beg to move that this House is considered unaccompanied minors seeking asylum. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Sir Gary, and I am grateful for the opportunity to lead this debate today on an urgent and sadly all too familiar issue. Last month, 30 miles out at sea at 3 a.m. in freezing conditions, 4 migrants died in a small boat capsized in the English Channel. This is not a new story, sadly. It happens too often. But one of the dead was just a teenager. This news never gets any easier to hear or digest. In that same tragedy, 8 children were among those who were successfully rescued by the Coast Guard. Now, the Mirror reported that one 12-year-old survivor was escaping Afghanistan after his whole family had been killed by the Taliban. None of us can imagine the horrors that drive people to get on boats or perilous journeys to cross the Channel, yet those horrors are experienced by innocent children every day. Unaccompanied asylum-seeking children arrive alone, afraid, and have no idea where to start. Unfortunately, this government is fixated on criminalising and discrediting desperate people who have come to the UK to seek a new life. Vulnerable children and young people are having their rights and protections stripped, and this is the wrong approach. Our duty must be to give them a warm welcome, a fresh start, and the protection and hope they so desperately need when they arrive to seek refuge in the UK.
On that point,
I will give way.
Can I commend the Honourable Lady for bringing this forward? It's an absolutely super subject, but it's also a very worrying subject as well. Does the Honourable Lady not agree that all young people, no matter their background, deserve the same chance of a healthy, stable upbringing, which gives them a chance to succeed in later life? Most of these minors will be helpless, and they feel that we could, and does the Honourable Lady feel that we could do better to fulfil our duty of care other than feeding and clothing, but also by ensuring that they have a chance at a future life with an education and a stable home?
Absolutely. I thank the Honourable Member for that intervention as always, and he is absolutely correct. We have a duty as a country, as a nation, but as humans, to simply consider that these children are not the criminal gangs, they're not those who are facilitating the process of getting to the UK. They're simply the innocent bystanders of a process that they themselves may not have chosen. Chair, far too often children have been incorrectly declared as adults. An immigration officer will make a judgment on an age based on demeanour or appearance. If judged to be an adult, they are sent for an age assessment. Rather, they are given a date of birth and sent to 11 rooms with adults. A specialist programme run by the Refugee Council in 2021 worked with 233 young people over 12 months who had initially been determined by the Home Office as certainly adult. Only 14 of them were in fact adults. That means that 219 of those children who were denied rights and protections as a child had been exposed to further exploitation, trafficking and violence as a result of this determination. 219 children who were counting on us to take care of them. The Home Office refuses to document how often this happens, how many children are judged incorrectly as adults, or what happens to them. There is no process to track such a decision. If there is any dubiety in that decision, there is no pathway to ensure that those individuals are protected and safeguarded until a definitive determination can be made. And I think it's fair to say that even the determinations that are made are questionable at times. So I would therefore ask the Minister to be more transparent with frontline decision-making. Will he commit to publishing the statistics on age-disputed children who are initially treated as adults? And will he outline a pathway for those individuals to ensure that they are protected and safeguarded within the system, as they should be? Chair, the Nationality and Borders Act 2022 gives the Home Office powers to conduct medical age assessments. However, the British Association of Social Workers has stated there is no known scientific method that can precisely determine age. Pushing scientific methods upon disputed young people is incredibly insensitive. It ignores the trauma they have been through, the atrocities they have seen, and those who are wrongly declared as adults will not be able to avoid deportation to Rwanda under this government's cruel plans. This is a terrifying prospect for children and young people, and I'm disappointed that the UK government, a place that was supposed to be their second chance, a place of safety, is only adding to this stress and anxiety. So can I therefore ask the Minister, when is the report from the Age Estimation Science Advisory Committee on specific scientific methods for age assessment going to be made available? And will the National Age Assessment Board pilots be shared, given their frontline role in rectifying this Home Office mistakes, and ensure that these processes are both transparent and that we can scrutinise them appropriately? Chair, unaccompanied asylum-seeking children are being abandoned by the Home Office, placed in hotels which are not only desperately unfit for anyone to live in, but for the use of children, particularly forced to live alongside adults, further exposing them to potential harms. The Home Office has set out its intention to speed up this process by which unaccompanied children transfer from temporary hotels to long-term care, but it's simply not enough, and that process, again, is not transparent. This only normalises the use of unfit hotels as a means of accommodation in the first instance for anyone, far less for children when they should be nowhere near them. Every child protected against trafficking said that housing children in hotels is unlawful, dangerous and contrary to the UK's child welfare legislation. In October last year, more than 220 unaccompanied children went missing from hotels. Had those children been within the care of authorities, they would have been protected. So let me ask the Minister again, what is the pathway and how do we ensure that no child who is placed within any form of accommodation, it is possible for that child to go missing without someone being directly accountable and responsible? Chair, unaccompanied children are alone, they're scared and they're vulnerable. Many have left behind their families, not knowing how they are. They deserve to have their families join them in safety. And the Home Office's position on altering family reunification rights for children is nothing short of ridiculous. This government believes that allowing children and young people to sponsor their families would incentivise parents to send their children on dangerous journeys to the UK. Now, whether this is the case or not, I don't believe that it is a decision of any parent would make outside of the most desperate of circumstances. Turning briefly to the point on family reunification, the Home Office's minimum income requirement means that UK citizens and settled persons currently have to earn $18,600 before they can sponsor a spouse partner to join them. More if children are involved, but that means that a substantial percentage of the population who do not earn this money can't live with their family and have to leave the country. Many thousands of families have been split apart since the introduction almost a decade ago, and many more have been affected by these rules, which will apply to EEA family members also. But rather than reduce the level of or abandon the policy altogether, as I have argued repeatedly, reports have emerged over Christmas that the Home Office was thinking of increasing it further, splitting more families apart. The fact is, many families in the UK right now may struggle to meet those requirements under the current circumstances. So to place this arbitrarily on families only ensures that further families will not receive that reunification. And it's not a reason to keep families apart. It only highlights the grave circumstances that children flee from, that they make these perilous journeys. The Nationality and Borders Bill brought in a ham-fisted policy with differential treatment for refugees seeking family union based on the way they entered the UK. Those who arrived outside one of the ever-dwindling safe and legal routes need to meet higher tests, additional requirements before being able to reunite with their family members. And back to the organisations like Families Together, who are calling for this discriminatory policy to be scrapped. Chair, I move to close my contributions by apologising to the unaccompanied asylum-seeking children who come to this country seeking safe harbour, because it's simply not the case. I want to apologise to the thousands of children who have come here who have potentially been lost in a system with no traceability, because this government refuses to acknowledge that they are in fact children. And I'm sorry that I couldn't cover more in this debate, but their voices and their stories should not be ignored. And just because of where they came from, the fact is they're children and they should be treated as such. And the harm and the neglect that they are facing after seeking refuge in the UK can only be blamed upon this government and the heartless Home Office policies which it exhibits. Chair, I don't wish to hammer home this point any more than I already have, but it's simply unimaginable to me that we have just recently 219 children who we cannot account for, and many more who we have incorrectly administered as adults. What is the Minister going to do to correct this? Because it simply cannot continue.
Minister, this is a half-hour debate. Have you got permission of the main motion to, the mover of the motion to speak?
You do now.
Are you happy with that?
You can.
Okay. Can we just... Mr. Watling, 5 minutes then, please.
Thank you, and it's an honour to serve under your chairmanship, Sir Streeter. And I'm grateful for the Honourable Member for Lanark and Hamilton East for securing this very important debate. I represent the coastal community of Clacton in Essex, and we have the second longest coastline in England, a very beautiful coastline with many sandy beaches, etc. But Essex has many points of entry. It has 2 free ports, and it was in Essex we had the horrific loss of life when 39 people being trafficked were accidentally asphyxiated. You might remember that horror in the back of a container. And I am a yachtsman, Mr. Chairman, and I know how treacherous our waters can be. Now, children from the likes of Syria, Ukraine, Afghanistan must have a quick, legal and safe route of asylum to our country. And quite frankly, reading some of these stories about children chills my blood. However, the truth is, as we know in Essex on the coast, illegal crossings are inviting disaster. And for those who are victims of modern-day slavery, the crossing might well be the best of it. But we cannot be emotional here. We have to be calm and as thought out as these evil traffickers are. They know that telling people to claim to be under 18 means that they will mostly be subject to our care system, opposed to the justice system. They know that councils struggle to deal with such complex cases, so absconding from care into their sinister destination is certainly not unheard of. In my view, the only solution to this is to negotiate with our French neighbours and get British boots on the ground in France. Now, I know we have British boots in control rooms in France now, and that's a very welcome development. But I think we can negotiate further and get British boots on the ground in France. We can finance that. Every boat that lands here tells those overseas that their dangerous business model can work, and tells those waiting here for their product that their evil business model is still viable. However, the point of my intervention for areas like Essex is to highlight stopping small boats isn't enough. Human misery can and is traded in large vessels, in HGVs, as I mentioned earlier, and so on. So I urge the Minister to apply the same focus we have on small boats to other modes of travel as well, which can be equally lethal, and get boots on the ground in France for the sake of these children. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for Lanark and Hamilton East for securing the debate, and indeed to my Honourable friend, the Member for Clacton, for his contribution. It is clearly an important subject, and I hope in the time available I can answer the points raised by both Honourable Members today. It's important, first of all, to underline that the UK does have a proud record of providing protection and sanctuary to people who need it, in accordance with our international obligations. Between 2015 and September of last year, we offered a place to almost 450,000 men, women and children seeking safety via safe and legal entry routes, including those from Hong Kong, from Syria, from Afghanistan and from Ukraine, as well as family members of refugees. And indeed, last year, we offered more entry route opportunities than in any single year since the end of the Second World War. Over the same period, the UK offered protection in the form of refugee status, humanitarian protection, and alternative forms of leave via asylum applications to over 90,000 people, including dependents. Equally, it's important to recognise the wider background when we're discussing these matters, and the Home Secretary and I have been very clear, repeatedly, about the challenges that we face as a country. Some of those have been referenced by the Honourable Member for Clacton. We should be under no illusion about the fact that the UK's asylum system has been under immense strain and mounting pressure for several years, owing to the very large numbers of people crossing the Channel illegally, principally in small boats, but not solely in small boats. Last year, we saw over 45,000 people arriving in clandestine boats. The journeys are facilitated by ruthless criminal gangs who are only interested in profiting from human misery. The tragic loss of life referenced by the Honourable Lady in the Channel last month was the worst possible reminder of the dangers of these crossings, underlying once more why it's so critical that we destroy the business model of the people smugglers. That is why deterrence will be suffused through everything that we do as a government, and why I disagree with the Honourable Lady's characterisation of our policy with regard to Rwanda. There is nothing compassionate about perpetuating a trade in people that risks the lives of thousands of individuals, including children, every year. I'll finish my point, and I will give way to the Honourable Lady. This evil trade must be stopped, and we're taking concerted action to do that on a number of fronts, as set out by my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, at the end of last year, including, as the Honourable Member for Clacton set out, deeper cooperation with our key partners, such as the French. Happily give way to the Honourable Lady.
Thank the Minister for giving way, but is it not the case that if just one child, only one child, is incorrectly defined as an adult by virtue of this abhorrent kind of diversive policy, or, as you put it, dissuasive policy of preventing criminal gangs, then that's one child too many who will simply fall through the cracks and be in further danger as a result of this government's abhorrent policies?
Well, I'll come on in a moment to answer her questions about age verification. But no, I disagree that sending individuals to Rwanda, a country which has now been declared a safe country by the courts, is a policy which is incompassionate or cruel. Quite the opposite is true. We live in an age of mass migration. There are millions of people who wish to come to the United Kingdom. And if we do nothing, which I think is the position of the Honourable Lady and her party, to deter people from coming to the UK, we will not find 45,000 people crossing the Channel. We'll find hundreds of thousands of people in the years and the decades ahead. And we have to answer this as a country, as indeed many other countries around the world are doing. And in the conversations that I have had, that the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister have had with our European and international partners, every developed country in the world is thinking carefully about how they can put in place procedures and policies which will prevent mass migration and deter individuals from making dangerous crossings or damaging their national sovereignty. And other European countries are looking to the work we're doing on Rwanda, and we may see other European countries copy that policy or make agreements with other third parties in the years ahead. I'll happily give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and he's almost answered my point already with that last sentence that he made. But there are some, I believe in 2020 there were some 90 million displaced people across the globe on the move, and that figure will have increased. So other countries will be facing the same problems that we're facing, and they will all have different models. Are we looking at different models?
We are looking at all models, and I hope that all honourable members can see from the plan set out by my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, that this is going to be a campaign on several fronts, and we are looking at every viable route to deter people from coming to the UK, to process applications as swiftly as possible, to find better forms of accommodation when they are here. I know that the honourable gentleman has been on the sharp end of that with accommodation in his own constituency. And of course we're talking to our international partners around the world who are all grappling with the same challenge. We are not an international outlier. The policies that we are enacting are those that are being enacted or considered by most other developed countries. And the Prime Minister, in his conversations with President Macron recently, the Home Secretary with the Calais group of Northern European states, are working intensively and constructively with our partners to find common ways forward. Because the treaties that we are bound by, like the Refugee Convention, were created for a different era in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War, prior to this period in which tens, if not hundreds of millions of individuals are looking to travel around the world. And it's in that context that we need to sharpen the deterrent that we have as a country and make sure that we are not an easier route than our European neighbours, and that we're not a more compelling destination for those shopping for asylum, or particularly for economic migrants, than our nearest neighbours. If I can answer the questions that the Honourable Lady has brought to my attention, the first point is around how we house individuals. And here, I think it's important to say that, and I mean no disrespect to the Honourable Lady in making this point, but it's an important one that needs to be said, that Scotland is bearing a lighter burden than other parts of the United Kingdom when it comes to refugees generally, in particular those crossing the Channel in small boats, and the same appears to be true with respect to children. And the best thing that the Honourable Lady and her... I will give way in a moment. The best thing that the Honourable Lady and her colleagues could do would be to go to Scotland, to speak to the Scottish Government and to Scottish local authorities and encourage them to adopt different and better policies so that Scotland takes a fair and equitable number of those individuals crossing the Channel. As I know she feels passionately about ensuring that those individuals are housed decently and compassionately. If I can just give the Honourable Lady the statistics before I refer back to her. What we know is that the Scottish Government currently has 9 hotels for supporting asylum seekers and 5 hotels supporting the Afghan cohort in the UK, which represents just 1.6% of the combined asylum and Afghan hotel population across the whole of the United Kingdom. There are small cities like Stoke-on-Trent in England that have more hotels housing asylum seekers than the whole of Scotland. That isn't fair and equitable. And if the Scottish Government and members of the SNP want to play a full part in these debates and discussions, the best thing that they could do would be to ensure that they play a greater part in that. But I'm happy to give way.
I think the Minister perhaps should be mindful when quoting statistics. First of all, that's somewhat of a misleading statistic to suggest that because Scotland is using fewer hotels, that for some reason Scotland is not adequately playing its part. Most local authorities in Scotland have more than stepped up to the plate, and the use of selective statistics is very, very misleading of the Minister and not great practice, let's be completely honest. Is it not the case that most hotels are not suitable accommodation, temporary accommodation or otherwise, for individuals, and thus that is a misleading statistic to suggest that Scotland is not playing its part in the many other ways in which we do accommodate asylum seekers?
Can the Minister finish in 30 seconds? I suspect not. If not, we'll have to come back. Can he finish in 30 seconds?
Could we come back?
Yeah, we can come back.
So I think the Honourable Lady had a number of important points.
Indeed. We'll come back in 15 minutes. If there's more than one division, add 10 minutes for every division.
Okay.
We could be here a while. Order, order. Sitting is adjourned or something.